The world was still reeling from the devastating news of the passing of legendary televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, when yet another, heart-wrenching shockwave shook the Christian community. His beloved wife, Frances Swaggart, was reportedly rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Within hours of the announcement of Jimmy's death, whispers of Frances's collapsing at home began circulating online, sending fans, followers, and faithful believers into an emotional spiral. What exactly happened? Why did Frances have to be taken to the hospital so urgently? And could this be the beginning of even more tragedy for the Swaggart family? As tears continue to flow, and prayers grow louder, here's everything we know about the chilling turn of events following Jimmy Swaggart's death, and why so many are now fearing for Frances's life. It all began just moments after Frances Swaggart, with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes, delivered her heartfelt tribute to her late husband, Pastor Jimmy Swaggart, during a private family memorial. Those in attendance said she could barely hold the paper from which she was reading. She was shaking, her voice cracked constantly. "You could tell she was barely holding on," said one eyewitness, who was present in the living room where Jimmy's closest friends and family had gathered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The pain of losing a partner of nearly 7 decades was visibly overwhelming. She looked like a woman who had lost everything. According to family insiders and church members at Family Worship Center, Frances had been putting on a brave face in the days leading up to Jimmy's passing. Despite her age and ongoing health issues, she stood as a pillar of strength for the congregation and her family. However, behind the scenes, things were reportedly not as steady. She hadn't been eating, she wasn't sleeping. All her energy was focused on Jimmy, a longtime associate revealed. The moment he left this world, it was like her body began to shut down too. The first signs of distress appeared just hours after Jimmy's death was officially confirmed. Frances, while sitting in Jimmy's old armchair in the couple's living room, reportedly passed out without warning. Paramedics were called immediately. Eyewitnesses described the scene as utter chaos. One family friend reportedly screamed, "Not Frances too!" as EMTs worked to revive her. It's believed she suffered from a sudden and severe drop in blood pressure, possibly triggered by emotional trauma and physical exhaustion. She was quickly stabilized and rushed to Baton Rouge General Medical Center. The news spread like wildfire. Within minutes of her hospitalization, the hashtag #PrayForFrances was trending on social media platforms worldwide. Thousands of fans, churchgoers and fellow Christian leaders began posting heartfelt messages of support. "First Jimmy, now Frances. This is too much for our hearts to bear. Lord, give her strength," wrote one Twitter user. On Facebook, fans shared decades-old photos of the Swaggarts from ministry events, televangelist tours, and behind-the-scenes moments from their long-running show Frances and Friends. It was clear, Frances wasn't just a pastor's wife, she was a spiritual mother to millions. At the hospital, doctors issued a guarded update. Frances had stabilized, but remained under close observation. The combination of extreme grief, age-related complications, and pre-existing medical conditions meant the next 24 to 48 hours would be critical. "She is in a fragile state," a hospital spokesperson reportedly said off the record. "We're doing everything we can." Meanwhile, the Swaggart family requested privacy, but couldn't stop the growing wave of concern that had swept through churches across America and beyond. Candlelight vigils began forming outside the hospital, and thousands tuned in online to pray together in real time. Adding to the emotional weight of the moment was the legacy Frances carried, not just as Jimmy's wife, but as a ministry leader in her own right. Many forget that Frances Swaggart was more than just the soft-spoken voice beside Jimmy on the pulpit. She was the driving force behind the media arm of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries. She helped launch Son Life Broadcasting Network, SBN, co-hosted one of the most watched Christian talk shows in America, and managed church operations with unwavering dedication. Her collapse was symbolic. It felt like a giant pillar of the Christian community had begun to crumble. Behind hospital walls, Frances reportedly drifted in and out of consciousness. She was said to be asking repeatedly for Jimmy. Nurses overheard her whispering, "Where's Jimmy? I can't see him," in her sleep. Doctors have not ruled out the possibility of a minor stroke brought on by stress. Her son, Donnie Swaggart, has been by her side every moment since the ambulance brought her in. According to those close to the family, Donnie has barely spoken since the double blow hit the Swaggart household. "He lost his father and may now lose his mother," said one family friend. "He's carrying the weight of an entire generation." The outpouring of support has been both overwhelming and emotional. Churches in South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia have joined together in massive prayer chains. Evangelical leaders across denominations have offered their heartfelt condolences and spiritual support. Pastor Joel Osteen said during his Sunday service, "Let us pray fervently for Sister Frances Swaggart. She's more than a ministry partner, she's a beacon of faith." Bishop T.D. Jakes shared a video message declaring, "Frances, we're lifting you up. Your testimony is not over." Meanwhile, Son Life Broadcasting continued airing tribute content for Jimmy, but inserted special updates every hour regarding Frances's health. The network's hosts, some of whom were visibly crying on air, urged viewers to keep the faith. "We believe in miracles. And we believe Frances will come through this. She has to." Thousands of calls, emails and voice notes poured into SBN's headquarters in Baton Rouge, flooding their prayer line. But not everyone was hopeful. The reality of her age, 86 years old, and the trauma of losing a spouse after nearly 70 years of marriage made many brace for the worst. Fans shared heartbreaking comments like, "If she goes too, it'll feel like the end of a divine era, and I just can't imagine a world without Frances and Jimmy." Some recalled how the two were never apart for more than a few days in their entire married life. "If soulmates are real, then they were it," one longtime church member said tearfully. Even celebrities and public figures who had encountered the Swaggarts over the years weighed in. Dolly Parton shared a prayer on Instagram. Christian artist Michael W. Smith posted an old photo of him performing at Family Worship Center, captioned, "Frances was the one who held everything together behind the scenes, praying hard for her." Gospel singer CeCe Winans posted a video of herself singing Amazing Grace in Frances's honor, urging her fans to join her in an overnight prayer vigil. Inside the hospital room, Donnie reportedly brought a Bible and placed it in Frances's hands while she slept. Sources say he also played recordings of her and Jimmy preaching together, hoping the familiar sounds would bring her back. Family members took turns holding her hand and whispering, "You're not done yet. Jimmy would want you to fight." The medical staff, though highly professional, couldn't ignore the sacred atmosphere that had enveloped room 416 of the intensive care unit. "We've never had this many people praying outside our hospital," a nurse noted. "It's almost holy." Then, as the 48-hour mark neared, a shift occurred. Frances reportedly opened her eyes and whispered something. Though faint and unclear, one nurse insisted she said, "Jesus is with me." That tiny spark of consciousness ignited a wave of hope like wildfire. News broke instantly, and a new hashtag began trending, #FrancesAwake. Pastors and church leaders began proclaiming it a sign from God. Some even went so far as to say her recovery would be a miracle to finish the testimony she and Jimmy started together. Doctors remained cautious. "We can't rush this. Her body has been through intense emotional and physical trauma," a hospital spokesperson warned. Yet, as prayers continued, so did signs of progress. Frances regained partial consciousness for short periods. She was said to recognize Donnie, and even tried to smile when he played one of Jimmy's old gospel songs. "She's still weak, but she's fighting," Donnie reportedly told a close friend. "She's always been a fight." Back at Family Worship Center, a new kind of revival had begun. People filled the pews every night, not to mourn, but to pray for Frances. Church members brought flowers, photos, handwritten letters and candles. An entire wall was covered with sticky notes from children in Sunday school, each bearing one message: "We love you, Sister Frances." The air was thick with faith, emotion, and a sense that something sacred would unfold. By the end of the week, Frances's condition was upgraded from critical to serious but stable. Though still under constant observation, her vitals had improved, and doctors were optimistic, albeit careful. She had yet to speak fully, but had made eye contact with her loved ones and squeezed Donnie's hand when he prayed aloud. "That squeeze said more than any sermon ever could," a nurse remarked. And so, the world watches and waits. Frances Swaggart's life now stands at a crossroads, and with it, the legacy of an entire ministry era. Will she pull through and continue the work she and Jimmy dedicated their lives to, or will she soon be joining him on the other side? As millions continue to hope, pray, and lift their voices in faith, one thing remains clear. The story of Jimmy and Frances Swaggart is far from over. It's still being written, one prayer, one heartbeat, one miracle at a time. Thank you for reading this exclusive report. If Frances Swaggart and the legacy of Jimmy Swaggart have touched your life, now is the time to lift them up in prayer. Join the millions already praying. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story to spread awareness. The world is watching, the heavens are listening, and we are all praying hard.